The cops tased me because I was black in a white neighborhood. Then they realized I was their former boss. I jogged through my neighborhood at dawn, taking advantage of the empty streets. I bought my house here after I retired as police chief 5 years ago. As a black man walking through the whitest part of town, I knew that at some point I would have this conversation with an officer who had started after I had. My gray beard and the weight I had gained since retirement made me look nothing like the man whose portrait hung in the lobby of the station. But I had hoped that the police force I once loved and respected would still follow my lead with words instead of weapons. I was about to find out that I was dead wrong. A patrol car slowed down next to me as I jogged, and the officer in the passenger seat rolled down his window. "You're lost," he yelled. As I continued jogging, he briefly sounded the siren. "Hey, I'm talking to you. This isn't your neighborhood." I stopped and explained that I lived here, but he laughed. "Sure, and I'm the mayor. What are you really doing here so early? Scouting houses?" My stomach clenched like it used to before dangerous rats. That familiar feeling that something was going to go very wrong. I remained calm and pointed to my house 3 doors down and told him I'd owned it for years. I could have told them who I was, but I had to see what had become of my officers. If they thought no one was watching, even if it meant risking my own safety. But I didn't think it would go that far. The officer got out of the car while his partner spoke on the radio, which I couldn't hear. "You expect me to believe that you live in this neighborhood? These houses cost $500,000. He walked slowly around me, shining his flashlight in my face, even though the sun was rising. "Let me see some identification and keep your hands where I can see them." As I reached for my wallet, he slowly yelled, "No sudden movements." After looking at my identification, he claimed it was probably fake. "Richard Thompson, 425 Oak Street, nice try." He pocketed my identification instead of giving it back. Then he called for backup and said they had a suspicious person. When I asked for it back, his partner got out and stood behind me. "You're pretty demanding for someone in your position," he said. "Maybe you should shut up and let us do our job." The first officer added, "We've had burglaries in this area. Black male in his 50s, you fit the description perfectly." Quote, "The first officer told me to put my hands on the cruiser for a search. When I asked what reasonable suspicion he had, he grabbed my wrist and twisted it behind my back. I don't need reasonable suspicion if you're suspicious. Spread your legs." He kicked my feet apart so hard that I stumbled as his partner searched my pockets, threw my phone to the ground, and stomped on it. "Oops, can't call your lawyer now, I suppose." As I tried to stand up straight, the first officer slammed me face first into the hood of my car. "Did I say you could move?" The metal crushed my nose and I tasted copper as blood filled my mouth. This was the department I had built. These were the officers I had trained, and they treated me like I was nothing. His partner laughed and said, "Looks like he's resisting. This is a felony." They handcuffed me so tightly that my hands went numb immediately. 2 more cruisers arrived and 4 more officers surrounded me. One of them recognized the situation immediately. "Another one who doesn't belong here," he said, and kicked me in the stomach. As I writhed in pain and gasped for air, they all took turns, pushing me around and laughing as I stumbled. "Look at him, can barely stand, probably on something." "Hi!" An officer grabbed my head and slammed it against the window of the cruiser. The first officer pulled out his taser. "Stop resisting," he yelled, even though I was just standing there, bleeding. Every muscle in my body screamed in anticipation of the pain I knew was coming. He blasted me with it and I collapsed to the ground, convulsing. I tried to scream, "I'm Chief Thompson," but my jaw was locked. My tongue wouldn't work. Only gurgling sounds came out. As I lay on the ground, his partner started kicking me in the ribs and I heard something crack, which was for wasting our morning. Another officer started filming with his phone, laughing about how this was going to be great training material. One officer unzipped his jacket and started urinating on me while I was still reeling from the taser. "That's what we think of criminals in this neighborhood," he said, as the others cheered him on. The humiliation stung worse than the taser, worse than the broken ribs. I had dedicated my life to this badge, and now they're literally pissing on everything I stood for. When he was done, another officer grabbed my head by the hair and shoved my face into the puddle. "Clean it up," he said, rubbing my face into the asphalt and his own urine while the others took pictures. As I lay there, covered in blood and urine, a department SUV pulled up. Captain Adams got out, one of the few officers still around from my time. The first officer yelled, "Captain, we caught this guy breaking into houses, had to use force when he resisted." Adams walked over, looked down at me, and his face went completely white. The rest of the story is on my channel or link below.